You're watching All 24 News World News program broadcasting to you live from the capital, Algiers. I'm Islam Sid, and up next are tonight's sub-stories. Morocco's Exodus death toll passes 100. A report blames Rabat over the Ceuta crossing. Leaders condemn the use of migrants as political leverage. The Polisario front rejects what it calls fake autonomy plans. It says Morocco is blocking peace and urges enforcement of UN resolutions. President Tebboune congratulates Algeria as young math champions. Algeria unveils its first homegrown racing car, and Italy praises Algeria's migration strategy. And later on, Trump says talks with Iran are back on. Tehran denies negotiations and says the Strait of Hormuz will stay closed while the embargo remains. This story and more shortly. Welcome back to the details. The death toll from the mass migration attempt from Morocco to the Spanish enclave of Ceuta has risen to 108, with authorities warning the death toll could climb further. Officials said 88 bodies were recovered in Ceuta and 20 in Tetuan, as search and recovery operations continue. In response, Spanish Defense Minister Margarita Robles blamed Morocco for the mass influx of more than 60,000 migrants into Ceuta. Robles said Spain's armed forces are protecting the country's territorial integrity and called for the migrants to return to Morocco.
What we are seeing in reality is a group of people who have been misled. There are individuals and families who were deceived into coming to Ceuta. They must therefore be dealt with appropriately, with the protection and security of Ceuta as a priority, but also with the due regard for the humanitarian dimension, because it is clear that we are not at war. That is why the military will continue to support operations in Ceuta at all times, including carrying out humanitarian tasks. Above all, one thing must be absolutely clear: they will be returned to Morocco without the slightest doubt.
Meanwhile, Spanish daily El Español says Morocco's Royal Gendarmerie is behind the mass exodus to Ceuta, helping migrants reach the border for money. Zarfajan Esmar.
Spanish daily El Español is casting fresh doubt on Morocco's official explanation for the recent mass crossings into Ceuta, arguing that the operation may have involved more than just human smuggling networks. The newspaper lays out 6 key indicators it says challenge Rabat's claim that traffickers orchestrated the crossing. Instead, it suggests there are signs that Moroccan state actors may have played a role in facilitating the movement of migrants. First, El Español argues that traditional smuggling networks have lost much of their influence in recent years, as tighter European border controls have made their operations increasingly difficult. In their place, the newspaper says members of Morocco's Royal Gendarmerie have emerged as key facilitators. Citing interviews with migrants who made it into Ceuta, the report indicates some officers accepted money to allow people through the coast or border crossings. Several migrants also said Moroccan authorities encouraged them to head to the Spanish territories. The paper says those testimonies point to a significant shift, with security personnel, not criminal gangs, now playing the leading role in enabling departures towards Spain. It also questions how more than 60,000 people could have reached Ceuta in just a matter of days without at least some level of official coordination. The crossings unfolded during heightened security for Throne Day celebrations, while King Mohammed VI and senior officials were staying only a few kilometers from the border. Witnesses quoted in the report describe what they saw as an unusually passive response from Moroccan security forces, especially during the first hours of the crossings. Similar accounts were echoed by young Moroccans interviewed by international media, including the New York Times and Le Figaro, who said authorities appeared to ease their access to the border. The report also asks how thousands of people traveled from cities such as Casablanca and Fez to to northern Morocco without being stopped. Videos circulating online showed packed trains, buses, and trucks carrying young people north, movements the newspaper argues would have been difficult for security services to overlook. Finally, El Español cites Spanish civil guard analysts who identified members of Morocco's intelligence services among the crowd entering Ceuta. Taken together, the newspaper says these indicators suggest the mass crossing cannot be explained by smuggling networks alone and warrant a broader investigation about who may have facilitated this operation.
The fallout has also drawn a reaction from the Polisario front, which said the mass migration of Moroccans to Spain exposes the country's deep political and social crisis, accusing Morocco of denying its citizens their basic rights. Senior Polisario official Sidi Mohamed Omar also accused the Moroccan regime of using migration to pressure neighboring countries and fuel regional instability.
What happened and what the entire world witnessed is a clear evidence of the internal situation in the troubling, destabilizing neighboring country. We saw innocent people fleeing their own homeland. Ironically, I pointed this out in my previous statement, and it came just one day after their king spoke of prosperity and a safe, dignified life. What we have witnessed completely contradicts those claims and once again proves that the Moroccan occupying state is built on a system that suppresses rights, represses its citizens, and deprives them of any real sense of citizenship. What we have seen is undeniable proof of that. But more importantly, as I have said before, we are dealing with a state that not only practices state terror against Sahrawi citizens in the occupied territories, but also uses other tools such as migration and drug trafficking to destabilize the entire region.
And speaking of Western Sahara, the Polisario Front reaffirmed its rejection of any solution that legitimizes the occupation, insisting that any settlement must guarantee the Sahara people's right to self-determination and independence. The front also announced that the UN Security Council will meet in October to consider renewing the mandate of the UN mission for the referendum in Western Sahara.
Following the Security Council's adoption of its latest resolution 2797, the United Nations, in conjunction with the United States, which, as you know, holds the pen of the MINURSO mission, initiated informal ministerial meetings between the two parties to the conflict, the Polisario Front and Morocco, to discuss the implementation of this resolution. Invitations were also extended to the neighboring countries Algeria and Mauritania. Within this framework, 3 rounds of formal ministerial talks were held in January and February of this year. These consultations constitute the beginning of a process, but it is still too early to judge its development and outcome, given the complexities we are witnessing in this process. The foremost of these complexities, without a doubt, is the Moroccan occupation state rejection of a just and lasting solution based on the principles of international law.
The Polisario Front also said Morocco remains the main obstacle to a peaceful settlement of the Western Sahara conflict under international law. Its UN representative Sidi Mohamed Omar said it is still too early to assess the outcome of the recent UN and US-sponsored talks because major obstacles remain.
Let me reiterate that the Sahrawi people's adherence to their inalienable right to self-determination and independence is a right that cannot be relinquished, compromised, and delegated. This right is firmly established through the immense sacrifices over the decades and is therefore not contingent upon any decision by this or that institution. The United Nations recognizes and affirms this right. The Sahrawi people are therefore committed to this right, for which they have paid with their very lives. The international organization and international law in this world we live in must create mechanisms and means through which the Sahrawi people can exercise this right, and this is the basis of all peace processes undertaken by the United Nations.
Separately, in a letter to the Security Council on the Sahrawi detainee Namas Fari's hunger strike, the Polisario Front's UN representative blamed Morocco's occupation forces for his fate and other detainees' systematic abuse in Moroccan prisons. Let's take a listen again.
We are awaiting the United Nations Security Council to hold meetings and consultations next October to examine the report submitted by the UN Secretary General. Frankly, it is not a new report from the Secretary General, nor is it a new resolution from the UN Security Council. Rather, the UN Security Council and the United Nations as a whole have to assume their historical, political, and moral responsibility toward the people of the last colony in Africa, namely the Sahrawi people, alongside whatever the Secretary General may present and whatever the decisions the Security Council may take. The Sahrawi people, as we have repeatedly stated, remain determined to uphold their legitimate rights, which are not open to compromise. Today and tomorrow, they remain committed to the right to freedom, independence, and the completion of their sovereignty over the entire territory of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic.
Back in Algeria now, Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz sent a message of condolence to President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, over the victims of the Boumerdast bus accident. The Saudi monarch expressed his sympathies, praying for mercy of the victims, a speedy recovery for the injured, and safety for the Algerian people. Similarly, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune received a condolence message from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over the Boumerdast bus crash victims. The Crown Prince expressed his deepest condolences to the President and the families of the deceased and wished a swift recovery for the injured. In national news, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, congratulated students from the National Higher School of Mathematics for their outstanding performance at the International University Mathematics Competition in Bulgaria. He praised their top international rankings among participants from 130 universities across 48 countries, wishing them continued success. Algeria has unveiled its first fully designed and built Formula-style race car, marking a milestone for the country's universities and engineering sector. The vehicle was presented by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research during a ceremony in Algiers, where a team of 44 students from the National Polytechnic School was honored for developing the car and representing Algeria in the latest Formula student competition in the United Kingdom.
I'm here today to represent my team, which is the first Algerian team to participate in the International Formula Student Competition. This is an international competition organized by the United Kingdom in which several universities from different countries participate. The goal of the competition is to design a Formula student racing car.
This engineering project demonstrates the capabilities and skills of engineers on a global level. Thanks to the honorable results we achieved in the first edition, we hope, God willing, to continue our ambitions in the upcoming work and move to the next category in this competition, like the electric category. God willing, we aim to achieve outstanding results.
Algeria's Interior Minister Said Sayoud says the growing momentum in Algerian-Italian relations is creating new opportunities to expand bilateral cooperation and strengthen the strategic partnership between the two countries. Speaking during talks in Rome with his Italian counterpart Matteo Piantedosi, Sayoud said the progress reflects the shared commitment of both countries' leaders to deepen their ties across a range of sectors. For his part, Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi has praised Algeria's comprehensive approach to tackling irregular migration, highlighting its balance between humanitarian, security, and development priorities. During talks in Rome, the two sides agreed to strengthen security coordination and expand operational cooperation to combat migrant smuggling and human trafficking. Now to the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump says talks with Iran were underway, warning that it was a last chance for Tehran to sign a deal to end the 5-month-old war. But Iran denied that any negotiations were being held or even planned. Marwa Bahlour reports this time.
Mixed signals from Washington, Tehran have once again plunged observers into a familiar state of déjà vu as the same loop of uncertainty continues. Over the weekend, US President Donald Trump repeated a pattern that has emerged throughout the past 5 months, that he is announcing plans for massive attacks on Iran only to cancel them at the last minute. On Monday, he insisted that talks are going on at the moment, warning that it is the last chance for Tehran to sign what he called a good deal.
But we are talking right now, we're talking at the request of Iran. This is the last chance. This is not something that, if it doesn't happen, this is the last chance for them to sign a good document. Yeah, please.
Tehran, on the other hand, has been repeating that no negotiations with the US were taking place and no meetings were scheduled, noting that the only talks underway are with Oman over the Strait of Hormuz management.
We currently do not have negotiations with America. Our effort is to, at first opportunity, with consultation and cooperation with Oman, determine a route that will naturally be temporary. Based on that, we can provide the security of shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The dispute over the Strait of Hormuz remains a central point of contention. Washington says the June memorandum required Iran to open the strategically vital waterway, while Tehran argues the text explicitly preserved its authority over shipping traffic.
The dispute over the Strait of Hormuz remains a central point of contention. Washington says the June Memorandum of Understanding required Iran to open the strategically vital waterway, while Tehran argues the text explicitly preserved its authority over shipping traffic. For the time being, Iran says the waterway will remain closed amid the US maritime blockade, adding that it will not return to its pre-war status. Trump, meanwhile, reiterated his assertion that the US Navy had full control of the strait and that the deal provided for its immediate reopening. In yet another sign of escalating tension over the Strait of Hormuz, the British maritime security body UKMTO reported an explosion early Monday near a tanker off the coast of Oman amid an absence of a clear diplomatic trajectory for where the conflict is headed.
Elsewhere in the region, Zionist forces have intensified operations in southern Lebanon, carrying out a series of airstrikes on several towns in the Nabatiya and South Governorates. Local reports say homes were demolished in Benjbil district, while fires set to olive groves and vineyards caused extensive damage to agricultural land. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam says his government is working to secure the phased withdrawal of occupation forces from southern Lebanon. During a cabinet meeting, Salam said Beirut has stepped up diplomatic efforts with regional and international partners to halt Zionist occupation demolition operations and explosions in the south.
The Prime Minister addressed the issue of the Israeli attacks, particularly the donations carried out by Israeli occupation forces. He pointed the international contacts being conducted by both himself and the President, whether through the mechanism or through friendly countries around the world, with the aim of mobilizing international support to put an end to these attacks.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, a Palestinian man has died from wounds sustained in a Zionist strike on Gaza City as the death toll from occupation attacks since Sunday evening rose to at least 20, with dozens more injured. Palestinian medical sources say the latest casualties come amid one of the deadliest waves of attacks in weeks. Occupation forces continue airstrikes, demolitions, and attacks on displaced civilians despite the ceasefire agreement. And as the genocidal war drags on, the occupied West Bank is facing a deepening economic crisis, with jobs disappearing and poverty on the rise. Here's Karen Maswa with the report.
The economy of the occupied West Bank is under immense pressure since October 2023. Employment has soared, the cost of living has climbed, and poverty has more than doubled. After the Zionist entity suspended thousands of work permits, many Palestinians lost their main source of income. Hamdi Salama from Beit Lahm regained his permit just a few months ago.
Before October 7th, we used to throw checkpoint 300. After October 7th, I think they revoked all permits for all workers in Palestine, and there were no more workers. No permits for workers at all.
For those still without a permit, earning a living often means taking enormous risks. Many attempt to cross through gaps in the separation barrier or remote areas to reach work. Those who get caught risk arrest and imprisonment, while others are killed trying to cross. Yet for many families, the need to put food on the table overweight the danger.
In the last 2 years, many have been killed, many have been injured, and the prisons are full of workers.
The suspension of Palestinian workers has also taken a toll on the Zionist economy. The construction sector, which has long depended on Palestinian labor, is grappling with a severe workforce shortage, leaving many contractors struggling to replace experienced workers.
Turning to Eastern Europe, at least 10 people have been killed in Ukrainian attacks targeting Russia's Krasnodar region and the Crimean Peninsula, according to Russian-installed and regional authorities. Officials said 7 people, including 3 children, died after drone debris fell in Krasnodar, while 4 others were reported killed in Crimea. Authorities say investigations and emergency response operations are ongoing. At least 4 people have been killed and 41 others injured in Russian attacks across several regions of Ukraine. According to local authorities, 3 people were killed in a drone strike on a fuel station in the Dnipropetrovsk region, while another person died and 34 others were injured in 2 separate attacks on Zaporizhia. 7 more people were wounded in airstrikes targeting Odessa and Chernihiv. Elsewhere in Europe, a major wildfire has broken out in the northern Dutch province of Limburg, forcing residents to evacuate and disrupting rail services. Officials say the blaze spread rapidly through the Rosmalen Nature Reserve, burning around 21 hectares. Firefighters, supported by 35 fire engines and military helicopters, are working to contain the fast-moving flames.
The challenge with extinguishing the fire is that it is far, as I'm aware, very high up, and the trees. We're of course also dealing with the wind that is fanning. The fire is moving through the trees, and you have to be able to reach it.
Across the Atlantic, authorities have ordered the evacuation of around 60,000 people as fast-moving wildfires threaten the city of Spokane in Washington State. Fire officials say the blaze has destroyed nearly 600 buildings, including homes and businesses. The fires, which consist of 3 separate burn areas, continue to endanger evacuation zones, although no deaths or injuries have been reported. In another topical story, Cuba has suffered another nationwide power outage, with the state electricity company saying the blackout affected the entire country overnight. Officials attributed the disruption of the ongoing fuel shortages linked to U.S. embargo, which has made it increasingly difficult to supply power plants and backup generators that rely on imported diesel. And finally, to sports, opposition is growing within the world football over FIFA President Gianni Infantino's proposal to sell stakes in major competitions, including the World Cup. Although the plan has reportedly been shelved, football stakeholders are calling for greater transparency and governance reforms, warning that confidence in FIFA's leadership is increasingly being eroded. Here's Sofian Kanturi with more.
What was intended to become a multi-billion-dollar revenue stream for world football quickly met fierce resistance. Mounting criticism forced FIFA President Gianni Infantino to abandon the initiative, turning what was meant to be a flagship commercial venture into a significant setback for his administration. Successive statements from football stakeholders, confederations and national associations might have differed in tone, but they shared the same underlying message. Confidence in FIFA's leadership has been seriously shaken. The backlash is now fueling calls for deep institutional reform. What initially appeared to be opposition to a single project is increasingly being viewed as a broader challenge to FIFA's governance, with some voices arguing that restoring trust requires more than simply withdrawing the proposal. Since taking office in 2016, Infantino has secured successive terms, including 2 elections as the sole candidate, but his path toward a 4th mandate in 2027 now appears far less certain. Critics warn that the proposal raised concerns over the integrity of independence of FIFA competitions, including the World Cup, by opening the door to greater commercial influence over the game's most prestigious tournaments. FIFA now finds itself at a defining moment. As pressure for change continues to grow, the debate has shifted beyond one failed project to the future direction of football's governing body and whether its current leadership can retain the confidence needed to remain in charge.
And that's the end of our news program for tonight. To catch up on any report you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. On behalf of All 24 News team, I'm Islam Sid signing off. Thank you for watching. You take care.